following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Monday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig alongside Mr. Ty Bartell, as Ty does his, oh no. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. We don't have nameplates anymore. You can be on the right if you want. Left. You can be on the left if you want. I guess you didn't want to. It didn't feel
Nah,
right.
let's keep it usual.
Oh, bad mojo. Anyway, this is a great Monday show. Like every Monday, it's recap Monday. It's results Monday. We have power rankings out for volleyball and football. We also have some state polls that were announced. Some teams that are getting into state polls and state ranked teams in our area as well. We'll go through all that. And then big matchups coming up this week. We have to kind of talk about, because now that we have results from last week, these matchups become a little bit bigger this week in all sports. Ty, let's start with some results. Go wind the clocks back to Friday, and let's go over some football. And I like to start the ones that our announcers are at first. So you did the traveling trophy game between Waterloo and Sebring, and Waterloo got their second straight victory in that matchup. What did you see out of that football game down there in Sebring?
Honestly, it was just Waterloo's size up front. That the line play of Waterloo was just dominant in this game from start to finish. They were creating so many open lanes and gaps for Jaden Haken to go through as a quarterback. And I mean, he did too, as he took it to the house quite a few times to the tune of over 100 yards and a hat trick in the half, 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half. And I mean, Waterloo just did what they were supposed to do. They had the line mismatch. They used their power. They used their strength. And they won it in the trenches all night. And they did that for 4 quarters and ultimately came away with the victory. Go 2-2 on the season for the Vikings.
So you can tell me if I'm right about this, because I only see it on tape when we're watching the audible call, but it looks like their offensive line isn't just big and strong, but they move pretty well, and that's something you really need for that triple option offense. You need an offensive line that can move laterally. And they seem like they move pretty well. Pretty athletic offensive line for the Vikings.
When we talked with Coach DeVries, you remember too, he told us that the big thing about this year is having all 5 spots of that offensive line returning from a year ago. And he was so excited for that going into the season. You really see it paying off in games like Friday night too, where they're able to get their first conference win. And that 2-2 record right now has them sitting at number 17 in Division 6 Region 21 in the rankings for Joe Itel right now. When we're looking at, puts them just on that outside looking in for the playoffs, but still a good spot to be in if you're Waterloo.
Okay, and going back to the offensive line that you need for a triple option, the wing T offense, as some people call it. I like to call it the triple option. Either way, whatever you call it, it's there. You watch it in college, you watch Navy, you watch some of those armed forces teams that use it. That's a little bit different, because remember, you can cut block in college. You can't go at the knees in high school, I believe. I don't think you're allowed to cut block, even if it's not a chop block in high school. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to dive at players' knees for high school football. For a rules committee that won't allow you to hurdle, I'm going to think that's not illegal. So you really have to have an offensive line that can move the line laterally to let that triple option kind of find its way. Because in the college and in the bigger ranks of triple option, you want to cut cut down those defensive linemen so you can, move well. So when you can't cut them, you got to move them laterally. So that's why I said I think that the Vikings have a very athletic offensive line that can move laterally, which is something you really don't see much. I mean, in most teams, you want an offensive line that can just push the line of scrimmage because you're more based on power when you're running the ball. But, Waterloo is more based on, can we get the gaps open? Can we spread them out laterally? So good to see them have 5 guys returning, and they all look pretty athletic, and they look lean, and they're exactly what you want out of that particular offense's scheme. They fit that offensive line.
I think another key too is when you have to pass, you got to be accurate. You got.
Oh, did you freeze time?
71 yards and a touchdown to Jaden Haken's credit. What I was cutting out? You said
you froze for a couple of seconds. You're good.
Oh. Okay, but yeah, no. But making those passes too, I think are key too. Because you got to keep that defense off balance, and like I said, 4 for 4 in the completion. I think it helps too, mixing in those few passes, and then it really makes that triple option work.
Look, when once again you watch triple option in college, you watch Navy. I watched it for a long time because Tech ran it from 2008 all the way up to 2017. You don't pass a lot, but this was the selling point to receivers because Georgia Tech kept getting receivers in there. Demarius Thomas, Stephen Hill, Darren Waller playing the triple option. You just got an extension for the Raiders. The call out was when you do get the ball, it's gonna be a big play because that's our whole passing game is chucking it down the field to try to spread out the defense when they creep up. So the selling point for receivers and the quarterback is you're not going to throw a lot, but when you do, it's going to be a chance for a huge play. And I'm sure it's the same in Waterloo's offense.
And it was definitely a bunch of big plays too. Plenty of 20+ yard runs in that game.
Talk about a bunch of big plays, Ty. Crestview looked angry. They looked like the angriest team on the network. 63-0. They beat Camel. They let out every frustration that they had for the first 3 weeks. All those close losses, all those losses they feel like they could have won, and they just released them like it was tension, like a slingshot. Let it go. And Camel was just, it was the worst time to play Crestview.
It was, unfortunately, for the Red Devils, and they definitely felt it too, as Crestview had to take their frustrations out with that 0-3 start, and they definitely did. And it was kind of just like a heavyweight fight too, where it was just like after a while, Crestview they put the brakes, I think, on the offense. They stopped after a while. 63, I think, was the good stopping point. But hey, it was a statement by the Rebels, and I think it was one that they needed themselves to make too. And I think if we know Coach Cusick too, it was talking about that in the practices. It was talking about that leading up to Friday, and those boys definitely came out and they showed it for sure.
And DJ had the inside knowledge, and he was talking about on the Joe Dickey Electric Scoreboard Show. One of the I guess the sayings or the what am I looking? What's the word I'm looking for? One of the mottos of this week's practice was 4 seconds. Because 4 seconds can drastically change a football game. And Crestview learned that lesson the hard way last week against United. So I think they didn't take any second for granted in this game. They were just like, okay, every second of every play, we're going to give everything we got. And they took that game from the jump, and they ran away with it. And they never looked back. 63-0. I think Crestview just sent a message to the conference that despite their 0-3 start in non-conference play, they are legitimately contenders in the MVAC.
Coach Cusick, too, is always a good one, too, to find a rallying point or a motto like that to rally around, too, and that's exactly what he was talking about, too. It only takes 4 seconds to lose a ball game, and you find that out the hard way sometimes. But that win still, Crestview's only at 21 right now, and remember, you need to be in that top 16 in their region, too. Yeah. They definitely have plenty of room. Yeah, right. Plenty of room and plenty of teams that are on this conference that are in this exact region that they're going to be playing this season too, that will allow them to jump them too in this slate too. So Crestview's still alive in the playoff scenario. They needed that win though last week.
As viewers start trickling in, we want to hear from you what your thoughts were on the weekend. You can hit us up on the comment section. We'd love to hear from our fans and our viewers. Ty, one of the things that game reminded me of, and this Crestview team reminded me of, is the 2020 Rebels. Remember, they lost their first game of the year to Champion, and the rest of the season, like not just the next week, But the rest of the season, they were just playing angry. They were just an angry football team. They'd hit you a little bit harder, and they would make you know that Crestview was there. They looked like that same angry football team in week 4. And an angry Crestview Rebels team is not fun to play.
They definitely want to take their frustrations out on the conference. It started with Camel. They're looking to move on to week 5 now, and it's going to be exciting because the matchups. We know that Gray conference.
Your mic just turned right off.
Oh, I'm sorry. But no, I was talking about Crestview. They were going in. They got that big win against the Red Devils. They look to take their frustrations out on the conference. Liberty's the next one up. They're 0-4 too, and they might be, unfortunately, also in that path of the war train moving through that is the Rebels.
Garrettsville Garfield in that same conference got the big win, 34-0 over LeBray as well. So both teams in the MVAC, both black and gold teams, they both got big wins, big shutout victories, and they might be on a collision path.
They definitely are. October 7th is going to be that matchup, and Crestview is going to be hosting Garfield, and I'm excited for that one. That's going to be hard-hitting, and those are two of the best in the conference.
By the way, these are in order of the final scores that came in, so like the order of the games ended. So we had 3 straight shutouts get reported to us, and because Canfield, they were able to shut down and shut out their opponent 42-0. I forget, St. Thomas More, I think was the name of that team from Canada. And yes, they were a team that would won 3 state championships. But remember, they also, because of COVID, their program was shut down. They hadn't played since 2019, and the rust of that long of a break showed.
It definitely does too, with Canfield being one of the top contenders the last few years as well. And Canfield's not an easy opponent to ask for, but it was something to get experience from, and they definitely got experience of some of our area's best, I think.
And Canfield, that they're just doing what they have to do every week. They're taking care of business. They don't look like they're missing a beat, and they have Cheney next week. So
that's going to be a great matchup too. That's going to be, two teams that are in the top 5 in power rankings that have been in the top 5, I think, since week 1 as well. What more can you ask for? And they're also in the same region, so you might see this matchup again come playoff time.
Yes, I'm always interested on how that affects teams and how they play, because when you're playing someone that's not in your conference but also in your region that possible playoff appearance, you almost have to, a little bit more strategy goes into it, what you want to show almost.
Boy,
maybe if it gets a little out of hand or something like that, do you pull back the reins a little bit quicker, or do you kind of just throw everything you got at them because it's just a regular season game? And if we happen to play them in the playoffs, then we'll deal with that when we deal with that. Different coaches deal with that differently.
I tell you what, too. I was watching that Cheney game, too, and boy, oh boy, did Youngstown bring it when the Cowboys faced Marlington, and they were loud and they were proud in that Reign Stadium. It's going to be a tough place to play for Canfield, but this is going to be a great matchup between 2 very physical teams.
2 weeks in a row, Cheney's gotten a pretty good fight on their hands. Marlington gave him a battle. Mooney gave him a battle 2 weeks ago. So you could say Cheney's pretty battle-tested.
And it's the kind of battle testing you need before making the playoffs too, or before trying to go on that run. Cheney just missing out on the playoffs a couple years prior. They're not looking to miss out this year, though. They're definitely eyes focused straight ahead. They're looking to make it.
How about this, Ty? West Branch came into this game against Ridgewood. Ridgewood, a team that was also undefeated. They were carrying a 34-game streak of not giving up more than 34 points. And West Branch scored 38 on them, and they won 38-14. A dominant win against a team that looked really good on paper against West Branch.
That's a really nice win for that, too. And, an impressive stat by West Branch to be able to do that offensively against a team that's been notorious defensively over the last few seasons. And we saw West Branch get another big win. And honestly, what we saw with the rest of the EBC, that win was pretty big for the Warriors as far as what the other EBC teams did going forward. Confidence-wise, it's not in the conference that the wins and losses count, but
I'm going to correct myself. I want to get these numbers right. It was 38 consecutive games of not giving up 30 points. So for Ridgewood, 38 consecutive games of not giving up more than 30 points. And then West Branch had a 20, at least 20 points in 34 consecutive games for their offense. That streak continues. Ridgewood's streak is snapped, and man, it was a battle between two different teams that excel at two different things. And West Branch proved that maybe in high school football, maybe in this level, offense wins games.
It can definitely win games sometimes, and it certainly won on Friday night for the Warriors. It gave them what now, 3 straight?
Yeah, they've won 3 straight. They're 3-1 on the season. There's that one blemish they can field in week 1.
Yeah, and I mean that was a tough game, and they showed their hearts out in that game as well too. And it's going to be exciting to see what this Warriors team can do going forward.
Mineral Ridge keeps on keeping on. They go to McDonald, a rivalry game on the road, and they win 40-0. Another solid performance from Ian Erb. He had 190 plus yards and a touchdown. Tristan Valley, he threw for over 100 yards. He scored a couple of touchdowns. So business as usual for Mineral Ridge as they get another MVAC Scarlet Tier win, 40-0 over McDonald.
Yeah, and I mean, believe me, we see you, Mineral Ridge. We see the Rams. We acknowledge what's going on in there, and it's been a pretty special start. And we've talked with Coach Shaner prior to the season. They were motivated, and this group of guys are definitely motivated. Tristan Valley's a great quarterback as well for this program. You talked about Ian Erb. He's another great supporting cast member with this too. They got a lot of great offensive threats, a lot of great weapons too, and that defense ain't too bad as well, pitching another shutout of a pretty darn good McDonald program.
The most points their defense has given up, I think, is 14 to Newton Falls last week. So their defense is doing just as good as their offense. What I like about their offense, though, Ian Erb is consistently getting 100, but they don't have one guy that's just like going off, doing like 250. 200 yards. It's a conservative effort. They're getting quality receiving. They've getting obviously great quarterback play from Tristan Valley. He can run, and then they have Ian Erb in the backfield as well. So it's almost a pick your poison with Mineral Ridge's offense. It's going to be really hard to stop. Mineral Ridge will host Springfield in week 5, by the way.
This is going to be the week where you get to know what they're made of, right? Because Mineral Ridge right now, they're sitting in that 7 spot. They're number 7 in their region right now. So they're in a spot where they would be hosting, if it were to start right now, they'd be hosting a playoff game. So Mineral Ridge looking to keep that up. They're going to need to play one of the toughest teams, though, in the conference that played a really good game against the Lowville Rockets.
This might be the biggest game against an 0-5 team, 0-4 team that you'll ever.
I can't believe we are talking about the possibility of Springfield being 0-5.
Like, you look at most teams, you're playing a winless team. This game doesn't mean much to you, or it's not going to carry a lot of weight. It's not going to prove anything about you. Springfield's like an 0-4 team that you just like. Everyone's waiting for them to hit the gas pedal. They just haven't yet, and they almost figured it out. They played well against Lowville. It was a close game. They had chances to win. Now they have another week to prepare. How are they going to show up against Mineral Ridge? We'll talk about that a little bit later when we kind of preview the week ahead in our quick previews of the week. Another score, this one closer, as it's our first close final of the night. And it was the 4-4 goal, guys. Go figure. They're always getting good games. 20-13. Geneva takes down Lakeside, who was ranked 4th in Division II, Region 5.
They were, and they definitely fell after that. Austintown Fitch now occupying the 4th spot as Lakeside has dropped to 9. So you could see how detrimental that one loss was. 5 spots. Well, yeah, 5 spots dropped for Lakeside.
If you want to know how good Division II is, Fitch is 4.
Yeah, and I mean, the teams above them, Nordonia, Archbishop Hoban, and Hudson. And I mean, Akron Hoban was the team that Fitch ran into last year, and Lamar Sperling, I said, was Sperling silver on offense too, because he definitely was. And that's the kind of talent you face in Division 2. But yeah, that loss proved to be big for Lakeside because they dropped a little bit. And then for Geneva being in Region 9 in Division 3, it helped their cases and their cause because now they're number 8. They would be hosting a playoff spot.
They're moving up, and that might be a team that our area teams have to deal with when they get into the playoffs.
It would now, actually, funny enough, if we were to start right now, it'd be Ursuline going to Geneva if it were to start right now. So
you're going to Geneva, right? Because it'd be 8-9.
Yeah, Geneva would be 8 and Ursuline's 9. So Ursuline going to Geneva. So like that, it would be definitely local teams, local matchups. So it's a team you'd have to pay attention to.
Wellsville gets the win 14-7 in the EOAC battle, and it was a defensive one to say the least. The second straight game where Wellsville gives up fewer than 10 points. Their defense is really rocking, and Columbiana still trying to give Coach Spate his 200th career victory.
It was a good win for Wellsville, too, going 2-2 on the season. Right now, they're sitting in a playoff spot. They're in the top 16 right now in their region, and that's the biggest thing. You just want to keep being ranked there week in and week out. Getting that big win. We talked about how 2-2 looks a lot better than 1-3 going the first 4 weeks of the season, and Wellsville's sitting in a pretty spot where, hey, you could make a run right now. You'd have a chance to definitely make the playoffs, especially sitting in Division 7, too. We know you can get 5-6 wins, can definitely get you a spot for sure.
If you're a Columbiana fan, hold on, because this is the second straight game where you've given up 14 or fewer points and you haven't won. So your offense has a lot of work to do, but your defense is putting in work. So, if you're a Columbiana fan, or if you're rooting for the Clippers, all you have to do is figure out the offense. It doesn't have to be perfect with the way the defense is playing. It just has to be a little bit better to get some victories, and hopefully they can give Coach Spate his 200th career victory before this season is over.
Yep, absolutely. We're rooting for him.
This is not a basketball score. Ellett drops 74 on East. They win 74-28.
Yeah, big score for Ellett in this one too. And I mean, offense just took it and rolled with it all the way through, as East really had no answer for it defensively, but still able to put up 28 points. You could find I'm sure, some positives in those drives too. You got to take away any positives that you can. Look at all the negatives and try to correct them. And then, like we always say, burn the film after that, right?
Up to this point, East defense had looked pretty good, pretty solid, but they just could not hold up against Ellett's offense.
Ellett's offense was something else, man. They were on a mission.
That's going to hurt their points per game average, I think, just a little bit.
Little bit.
Which is a shame, because I think now their defense stats won't reflect how good that defense is. This game was one that wasn't interesting until it was. It was interesting going in. Of course, it was one of the high build matchups, but Fitch was on top, 42-7. It was all looking good. It was blowout fashion, and then here comes Ursuline on the rampage, and they get within 8, but cannot finish the comeback. Fitch wins 42-34. Ty, do you think this was a thing of Fitch just laying off the gas pedal, or do you think Ursuline woke up and is good enough to compete with Fitch? What part of the fence does this game show, or is it a little bit of both?
I definitely think Ursuline's good enough to compete with Fitch. They've proved that throughout their history. They prove that almost every year that these two teams match up. And honestly, it's a coin toss whenever these two teams go at each other. And for Fitch to put up the lead that they did, I was kind of watching that, waiting for Ursuline to go on one of their runs, because it's the Irish. It's what you expect them to do. And they did. But credit Fitch, they were able to hold out. They were able to get the key defensive stops when they needed down the stretch, too. I was watching a little bit of the game afterwards, too, after the game that I was at was over. And it seemed like Ursuline was making a lot of mental errors, a lot of penalties too that were hurting them a little bit later in that game, that they could have shapen up and potentially tied the game at one point. But Fitch, I think after the way last year's game ended, knowing how a lot of those guys felt, they came into this one motivated, and they showed that, putting up 42 points. But they might have let off the gas a little bit after that too, and just tried to play conservative on defense. But Ursuline took their shot and came up just short.
I think it's a lesson to everybody. And then this is why some coaches, you want them to be like in a blowout situation, you want them to lay their foot off, but there's a narrow line between letting your foot off the gas when you're blowing someone out, and then also, this happening, right? So it's like, where 42-7, that should be safe enough to say, okay, we're gonna slow down now. We're winning by handily. We don't want to show up our opponent, but at the same time, you did that and you almost lost the game because Ursuline came all the way back. It just brings a little bit of pepper in that conversation when teams win 49-56-0, and you're saying, well, they got to slow down, they got to stop, because you don't want to show up your opponent, but at the same time, you don't want to teach your kids that it's okay to lay off the gas pedal, because if they do and this happens, then they're going to be like, well, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
so it's just that conversation is a little bit more interesting because things like this can happen. And I know Ursuline wasn't. There's differences between talent gaps. Like if Fitch was playing someone that they were clearly better at, they you don't need to beat a team 72-0 to prove to your kids that you don't need to lay off the gas pedal. But at the same time, I just don't think it's an easy conversation to have to say, oh, they're just putting up points.
You also got to remember, I mean, both these teams were going at each other offensively all night. It could also, I could fully see Fitch just being fatigued by that third and fourth quarter, and Ursuline getting a little bit more of those gaps, getting some more holes that they weren't getting in the first two quarters too, because these two teams were playing hard. They were leaving everything out there. They both wanted that victory. This is becoming one of the best rivalries, I think, in the area going into every single season. I love that these two teams keep scheduling each other because it's always a great matchup when they do. And this was no different.
Ursuline's got to fix the turnover problem. That was, I think, one of the things that kept them from winning this game. Cam Smith had a scoop and score. His player profile went up right before the game. So
it was a great timing.
That he was able to get one of the turning point kind of plays as he got that scoop and score for a touchdown. I believe that made it 21-0. At that point in the game.
Yeah, there was the scoop and score. I believe Cam Smith actually had the interception. I think DJ Williams.
Oh no!
Did DJ? Well, I could be wrong. You're right. There was a scoop and score, but I also believe Cam Smith had one of the interceptions by the end of it. The interception and score too. There was definitely some defensive scores in that game though for Fitch, and I think you're right though. The turnovers definitely helped Fitch in getting that big victory too in the Ice Castle in Stambaugh.
Hoover beat Louisville Friday night 34-8. That was a big test for the Leopards. I think everyone knew it coming in, and their offense still just trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly what you see too. Hoover's a great team as well. So Louisville, just another learning experience for them to go forward.
In Lisbon, the Blue Devils looked like they were going to put up a pretty good fight against Southern. The Southern scored 2-point conversion. They were up 8-0. Lisbon answered it, tied up the game at 8, and then after that, Southern just kind of put their foot on the gas pedal and really ran away with this game. 51-22, Southern gets to win and their first EOAC victory of the season.
Yeah, they definitely made a statement, did Southern, and that win was huge for them. They're still sitting in 3 right now in Division 7, Region 25, behind JFK and Toronto, which are 2 really good teams as well in that
Toronto is setting the world on fire right now.
They really are, man, and they're doing so in a big way. Every single week, it seems like they're putting up big scores.
And that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on them as we get closer to the playoffs. But Southern sitting at the top of the EOAC right now with Valley Christian. They both got wins. So I think it's still going to be interesting when they play United. And then, of course, when Southern plays Valley, that's going to be the big matchup to watch out for.
It definitely is going to be a big matchup, too. And Valley also ranked number 4 in their respective Division 6 Region 21, too. So still both these teams, top 4 teams, Southern 3 in their division, Valley 4 in theirs, yeah.
Ryan Exline scored a couple of touchdowns for Southern. He's a good running Sorry. Let me get it. He's a good running quarterback. And they have multiple weapons out of the backfield with Sukup and Wyatt back there, who's up for Big Dog of the Valley. They all can run pretty well. They have a kind of a 3-headed monster in the backfield. They can run with their quarterback. They have two backs in the backfield they can run with as well. So it's a really tough offense to stop. It makes it more impressive that Crestview held them to 12 points, to be honest. Like Crestview's defense keeps looking better and better.
They definitely do. And honestly, that October 7th matchup, again, it's going to be Southern it's going to be Valley Christian going to Southern in that one. And we already talked Crestview and Garfield are going to be going at each other in that one as well. These could definitely, October 7th. So October 7th or week 8, I guess, for this season too. We might be seeing what could be 2 conference championship battles right there.
Right. I mean, we'll talk about the United score later when we get to it, but United is hoping that they can beat Southern and Southern can beat Valley.
Yeah, they're going to win somewhere. And that's kind of what happened the one year. They just all beat each other.
Right. So, I mean, that's what United is hoping for right now. They dropped the game to Valley. We'll talk about it later. We'll talk about the rest of the results. little bit later. We're going to take our first break of the day. When we get back on Running Point, we'll have more results and more recaps of the weekend's action on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens. On air, online, Wednesday afternoon weather update,
very dangerous,
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
As fine as the eye can see, the finest hardwoods from the finest trees, made for your home and within your means, Baird Brothers will help fulfill your dreams. Let life and light come shining through in quiet morns. And heavy traffic, too. Find your easy-to-afford fine hardwood floors and doors and more at BairdBrothers.com.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Why choose local? Because you live here, work here, learn here, relax here, and celebrate here. 21 WFMJ is our family's only locally owned TV station, and our focus is local. Other TV stations don't have that same focus, as their owners are somewhere else. But 21 WFMJ is rooted in the Valley. Local people making decisions that affect your life, right here where you live.
You're looking to your future, preparing for your goals, and they're closer than you think. Because here, success is part of the plan. It's a place where academic and social opportunities are meant to prepare you for life, not just the next 4 years. You'll be equipped to face new challenges and turn hard work into a career. You're ready for your success to take root. And here's where it starts. We are Youngstown State University, and proud.
Hi, this is Tommy Clem, owner of WRS Insurance Solutions.
WRS Insurance Solutions is a local independent agency that specializes in life, Medicare, long-term care, and disability products. Call us at 330-953-3722 or visit us at wrsinsurancesolutions.com to learn more.
Good luck to all the student athletes in the Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig alongside Ty Bartel. Remember that Greenwood goes the extra mile for you if you're in the search for a car, There's no better place to go than Greenwood. Ty, you gonna pop one?
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. I was getting these power rankings in here for
Okay.
I was updating the overlays for us.
While you do that, let's go into our next score. Brookfield started off MVAC grade tier play with a bang. 47-6, they go to Liberty and get the win. Brookfield looked like there was no stopping them. And, there are 3 teams in MVAC right now that look like they're on a warpath, which is Brookfield, Crestview, and Garfield.
And you know what? On the other side, too, you got to say Mineral Ridge, Lowville, and Jackson Milton. There's undefeated teams on a couple of sides, too. But in the Scarlet side, there's 3 undefeated teams. But you're right. Brookfield, Crestview, and Garfield are definitely going to be on a warpath. I'm excited to see who's going to come out of it. We got a 3-team race, it looks like, at minimal right now for top.
You know what? I'm still going to call it, for now, a 3-team race in the EOAC. I know there's one team that took their first loss of the week. We'll get to that result.
Someone had to.
But, I still think that team is still in the hunt, and they just have to go and take care of business against Southern.
It does not matter which Eagles team lost that game. They were still going to be in the hunt for that conference until they drop another one. Like, they're still in the hunt.
They might not drop another one.
Yeah.
Let's just be real.
So,
I mean, you see on paper, those teams are better than other teams. I mean,
you still got a shot with one loss. You just can't drop another one at this point.
The margin for error now gets tiny.
Yeah, a lot smaller.
This score kind of surprising to some people. South Range got all they could handle from Struthers. Their defense came into South Range, played really well. They were a ball hawks. They forced the Raiders into 6 turnovers, Ty, which is, I would bet, the most turnovers they've had since they started this big dominant run back in 2017, where they've been a state powerhouse since 17 when they went to the state semis. So they do not turn the ball over often. And when they do, they definitely don't do 6 in a game, but they still were able to win. Their defense was put into tough situations all night. They were still able to hold, and they still get the 23-13 victory. So South Range survives a sloppy played game.
Yeah, they do. And you know what? Give some credit on this. The end to the Wildcats, too. They played a heck of a game, too. They were very familiar with South Range's offensive kind of style, too, and they catered a defense that pretty much thrived against it, too. And I think DJ made a great point in that in the Electric Scoreboard show afterwards. It was honestly you look at that, too, and you look at what Struthers was able to do defensively and creating those turnovers. It really is going to be interesting going forward if South Range now that they had that school start. That's what I was looking for. Talk about school starting with Yeagley too, and it was interesting to hear about that too and how that kind of affected that. And you can imagine that could affect South Range. I'm interested to see going forward too how they're going to sharpen up and react to that one as well.
It's easy to say that, but South Range has always been a school that starts late. So they've been in this position before. The only difference is this year it's 1 week later, so they're 1 week later into the season. But every year, you go back to when they were North Lima, whatever it may be, they were starting school like in week 3 because South Range is always a school that starts after the fair. That's just how they've been. They're a fair school. They have a lot of 4-H members, so they start after the fair. So they've always been a football team that started the season well before they got into school. So I think Coach Yeagley is if someone told him that, he'd laugh it off. He's not a guy that makes excuses, and he wouldn't make that excuse because he knows that his team has been through that before. But it could have a factor. I just think it's just one of those times when you're human, right? They're kids. They made mistakes, then they turn the ball over. It's going to happen to the best teams imaginable. It happens to NFL teams. Sometimes NFL teams go out there and they turn the ball over 4 times. And those are the top 0.05% of football players in America. So it's going to happen. South Range just has to kind of, take it in and say, hey, we still found ways to win when we played really bad.
DJ made a great point, though, that tape's going to be a gold mine. Everyone's going to be wanting that.
This is because, it's a blueprint in a sense, but the blueprint is 4-6 turnovers. That's a lot easier said than done.
I mean, you got to execute it too, but
it's not like South Range played a really good game and Struthers kept them with them. You know what I'm like? That would be more of a blueprint, in my opinion. Like if South Range played clean and it was still close, then that film would be really treasured, right? That would be gold. This is more of you'll watch it and the coaches are going to be like, well, All we have to do, guys, is force them into 6 turnovers, and we'll be close.
Yeah. But still, you got to be looking at the way Struthers executed their defense.
They did a lot of good things right, and there are going to be things in that film that other coaches are going to be able to watch, but I don't think it's going to be like a gold mine. I think coaches are still going to be like, how many times does South Range have to turn the ball over 6 times in a game?
Another heartbreaker, though, for the Wildcats.
No.
In a couple
you feel it for them. They went for 2 in week 3 against a very good Streetsboro team in overtime. They missed it. They lost by 1. And then arguably one of the best teams in the area they squared up against on the road, and they pushed them, and they just couldn't do quite enough to get the upset. That's got to be just demoralizing a little bit, and they have to get up and they have to keep fighting in a very hard NE8.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't get any easier week to week.
No time for the Wildcats to lick their wounds at all. They got to just get back up and work.
Take it as a positive. You just went up against one of the tops in the NE8, and you pushed them in a way that they haven't been pushed in quite some time in the conference.
And just like Coach Yeagley's going to have a tough week of practice and going to be hard on those guys, Coach Bake is going to go into this week with no moral victories. He's going to be like upfront with his guys. Guys, we forced a good team into 6 turnovers, and we couldn't capitalize. That is a problem, and he's gonna go through this week that way. He's not gonna say, "Hey guys, we played really well." It's like it's not gonna be a happy week for
you know. Coach Bank is probably like the motto's got to be like, you know, we should have been the team. We were the team that was supposed to end their streak. We were supposed to end their NE8 winning streak, and we came up short. We forced the turnovers. Offense came up short.
It's like it's almost like playing Tom Brady and giving him 4 interceptions and not winning the game. Like you're gonna
you gotta win those games too.
Like,
Yeah,
you know, you're
close
like you know the motto of practice for Struthers is going to be you gotta capitalize off of mistakes. We forced a good team into 6 turnovers. We couldn't finish. I mean, it's got to be cleared up.
You got to figure too with Dan Yeagley being in South Range, he's the perfect guy for that too, because you mentioned it too, and with South Range realizing they're human, they haven't had to realize that too much in this big run that they've had too, and he's that kind of guy that I think is going to be good for them too in this regular season to kind of lift them up after that kind of game where the offense had those kind of turnovers and realize, okay, we can get back to what we've done in the past. We've succeeded in the past before. We've been dominant in the past before. I think they're going to be just fine going forward.
GJ was able to get some insight into the locker room. He asked the coach on the way back up, like what the locker room atmosphere was like. And there was nothing much to be said. We just weren't like, it wasn't like we were scheming wrong or we were not executing our plays. It was like, hey, don't turn the ball over anymore. And you saw there were glimpses of the South Range we know in that second half. You know, obviously they put some drives together and they were able to score. So there were glimpses of it, and but it was one of those days.
Hey, like we said though, and I've said before, the best teams find a ways to win too, and they found a way to win.
Said a couple of times this year already, but Bill Cowher, one of his most famous quotes as the coach of the Steelers is, "So what if we win ugly?" Right? Like we win.
A win is a win.
A win is a win is a win. So South Range gets another win. Their regular season game winning streak, I believe, is now at 25, which is still the longest in our area. And they will continue that next week as they play Poland, I believe, on the road, if I'm not mistaken.
That'll be a fun one, too. It's always tough to win in Poland.
East Palestine gets their first win since 2020, their first home win since 2018, and they do it in dominating fashion. They beat Latonia 34-0. What a huge win for the Bulldogs.
To do it in front of a home crowd, too, you know that it was electric Friday night after the Bulldogs emerged victorious. But, you know, I think the way that their mentality needs to kind of be going forward is let's get the next one now, right? Because
there's still work to do, right? Like that's exactly it. Like now, this team is bought into a winning culture. Now, how the next step is learning how to handle winning. Right?
You competed with Malvern. You could have beaten Camel at a couple of points in 2 weeks ago's game. Last week, too, you put it all there. You put it all together. You got a big, dominant victory. Put it together again. Go into the next one because now it's going to be competitive. It's a Wellsville team, I believe, that they're playing next, if I'm not mistaken, that is coming off of a big win in their own right, a big win in the conference to send them to 2-2 on the season. So this is a huge game for East Palestine, and they can really show what they're worth against Wellsville.
You know what I liked about this game, watching it on the Audible call every now and then, is from what we saw. Like, I didn't watch the game beginning to end, so I can't say that there were no mistakes then. I'm sure there were mistakes. But East Palestine never really seemed to have that really big self-inflicted wound that hurt their drive, which is what they had in Malvern. I mean, they had a couple of chances to take back the lead. They took a lead. Malvern took it right back. It was 12-7 at halftime, but East Palestine had a couple of chances to punch things in the end zone, and they would have a snap go over the quarterback's head, or they would fumble, or they would just have drives that had too many negative plays. It seemed like in this game, they stayed away from the unforced errors that would hurt them no matter who they were playing.
And I mean, that's the key thing, right? If you win that turnover battle, you can most times, I mean, we've seen other cases like what South Range does, but most times you win that turnover battle, you're going to win all games.
And so East Palestine looked like a pretty clean football team, which is the first time you could say that in a while too. So you have to go back to 18. They had their last home victory against Lisbon back in 18. And their first victory overall since they beat St. John in 2020. So a big win for East Palestine, and they will look to keep it going as they play Wellsville, I believe, next week.
Well, had the weekend to enjoy it, right? Work begins today, right? So it's working with Wellsville.
Ty, you know, the talk in the NE8 has been Lakeview so far this year. They had a really impressive non-conference slate. They just one loss to a very good Garfield team. They held to 17 points. But I think everyone was saying, okay, but can you do it in the NE8, right? Can you keep it up? Are you going to turn into Jefferson last year, where they had a really impressive 3-0 start, and then they just weren't relevant in the NE8? Lakeview said, no, we are not. We went to Niles. They went to Niles, and they won 21-13. They beat the Dragons. I think this is kind of a statement that we are not just a spark in the start of the season. We played a tough non-conference schedule. We got 2 wins and 1 competitive loss, and we are ready for conference play. Lakeview seems legitimate, especially that defense.
Lakeview, after having the 0-10 season last year too, they're a perfect example of like kind of what we were saying with East Palestine just in the last recap. With Lakeview, they got that first win, and they weren't satisfied with it. They kept on going too, and they've piled on now 3 victories, a 3-1 record for the Bulldogs heading into week 5. Now you're legitimately talking about Lakeview competing for a playoff spot, and they can very well get themselves into position to do so.
This is their first NE8 victory since 2019 when they beat Jefferson, and that was the first year of NE8 play. They were able to beat Jefferson on the road, and they beat Niles on the road. You look at some of their history, and the most wins they've had, like dating back, I believe 2018. You look at it; they were 2-8 in 2019. In 2018, no, they were 2-8 in 2017. In 2018, they were 2-8 again. So you go back to their history. Oops, hold on. You go back to their history, and you look at it, 4-6 in 17. So they're on pace to win like their 4th game, which is right alongside of what they've done in the last 5 years. Their best season in the last 5 years was back in 18 with the 4 wins. So they're on par to have an historic season in Lakeview.
The good thing is for Lakeview right now, they're right now number 12 in Division 5, Region 17. Them and South Range, the only 2 D5 teams in that NE8 conference. So every win Lakeview gets is just more computer points for them week in and week out now.
And they flip spots. Remember last year they were 5. They were 4. Jefferson was 5. Now Jefferson's 4. Lakeview's 5. So just flip spots. There's still just 2 teams at NE8 that are Division 5. Now it's Lakeview and South Range.
Lakeview's a team you got to take serious now. I feel like a lot more serious than they have in years past. This is a legit team going into the NE8 play.
JFK had another test after winning with that 2-point conversion over Garfield. They win another 1-possession game, 20-12. They beat Perkins as Perkins came into town to play at Austin Town Fitch.
Yeah, and I mean Perkins did a great job too. And I mean they usually do a great job serving up the chicken tenders late at night, but no, this Perkins
Pancakes, Ty. They're good for pancakes.
I like the chicken tenders late at night, but the pancakes, the
You're
breakfast.
going to a breakfast place and you're like the chicken. I'm usually the chicken tender guy.
Yeah, you're
everywhere, and I don't even get the chicken tenders at Perkins. What are you
No,
talking
they're a bomb too. At least in the one Perkins that I used to go to. But what I was really impressed with, Perkins led for a large part of this game too. They were holding Kennedy down offensively for a large majority of this game, and Kennedy was able to break out like great teams do, and they got that late lead, and they ended up pulling out with the victory too. Warren JFK is just one of those teams year in and year out. They do this so well of giving you that false hope throughout the game that you got it, you have a chance to get it, and then they just rattle off 2 or 3 big scores. And that's the thing. They never need to blow you out. They can blow you out, but those good teams, they get those big scores and they play solid defense the rest of the way. And that's what you saw JFK do.
They're like that guy in the old Geico commercials with the fish hook and the string. Oh,
yeah.
I think it was Liberty Mutual, but one of those commercials. Oh, you got to be quicker than that.
No, for sure. But JFK, another big win against another really good team.
Jackson Milton still undefeated. They win a thriller with Western Reserve, 22-21 tie. This one lived up to everything it was billed to as a traveling trophy rivalry game between two pretty good teams. Jackson Milton still undefeated, though. They were 4-0, and they were part of that 3-horse race in the MVAC Scarlet Tier that you were talking about between Lowville, Jackson Milton, Middle Ridge, all undefeated.
I picked the Blue Devils in that game too. I'll full disclosure, picked the Blue Devils, and I am now becoming a believer in the Blue Jays. Jackson Milton starting to become make me a believer week in and week out. I mean, I looked at their first 3 weeks, honestly, and that's what I said. I said, okay, you played good, but I expect you to play good against those opponents too. The one exception, I think, being Newton Falls was I think
their biggest win so far is Newton Falls.
Yeah, that Newton Falls win was impressive too, and I wanted to see them do it again, and they did it again against their rivals, that a team that they haven't been able to get many wins against in the last 10 years or so, and they were able to get another big win against their rivals.
Newton Falls is 1-3, but their 3 losses are Jackson Milton, who's undefeated, Middle Ridge, who's undefeated, and now they lost to Champion. So
Champion was a pretty close game, but Newton Falls was also injured in that game, I think, and they didn't have all
their third string quarterback, I think. Yeah. So Newton Falls has a combined 10 wins in their 3 losses. The opponents, like their opponents have combined 10 wins. So Newton Falls is a really good team despite being 1-3. I'm getting attacked by this tiny little tsetse fly.
Giavi is a great quarterback though for Jackson Milton, and I mean, again, find different ways to win. They win ball games in different ways, and they do so in a close fashion, and they're able to pull off the nail biter.
Poland got a big win at home against Hubbard as they kind of avenged last year's final result. I know Hubbard got them in a nail biter last year, and now Poland gets to win 28-21, and they kind of tell the whole world that they're still going to be relevant inside the NE8.
Yeah, and I mean, Poland's looked good the last couple of weeks as well, and I mean, that's a huge win to kind of get yourself some confidence, gear you up before South Range Week here coming up in week 5. And we always know this is a good battle no matter where these two teams lie. Poland's always going to bring it, and this is going to be a fun one when Raiders have to do battle with the Bulldogs.
I think this was a game where people thought it would be under 20. You know, both defenses were playing so well in the first couple weeks of the season. 28-21 isn't far off that, but I don't know. I kind of expected – I didn't expect Poland. That's the most points they've scored all year, 28. So, I don't know. I was impressed that Poland's offense was able to find some ways to score, find some big plays too.
Yeah, they definitely found some big plays, and they took advantage of those big plays. It got them enough points, right? Enough to win too, get the touchdown victory.
Cheney had a fight with Marlington for a little bit. They pulled away late, and they win 35-10 over the Dukes.
Another nice victory for Cheney to set up the big Division III battle that's set up for week 5 now with the Canfield Cardinals. But Cowboys get another nice victory, and they do so with another great defensive performance. I think that's the one thing that's kind of forgotten about is how well Cheney's defense has played these last few weeks. Offense has put up a bunch of points, but their defenses look solid.
Not just how well they've played, how disciplined they've been on defense. They haven't gotten out of their gaps. They haven't had any terrible penalties. They've just been a disciplined football team, and that's what's, I think, continuing to impress me, that they're consistently disciplined. Remember last year they went to Canfield and they just got out physical, right? They were just not the most physical team on the field. I know they were missing some players last year. They were definitely hit by the injury bug. I want to see how they match up physically with Canfield this year, because they've been a really physical team so far this season. Can they match Canfield's physicality? Because that was the difference last year. I felt like you kind of knew from the jump that Canfield was the more physical team when they met last season.
Yeah, and this is going to be, I think, a question mark going into this. I think both these teams bring such physicality in the way that they play, and it's going to be a fun one. And I think, honestly, for the fact that it was in Canfield last year, too, kind of gave the Cards an edge. Obviously, I feel like home field's going to play a big factor, but I don't know. Cheney playing in that newly christened Rain Stadium, man, I don't know. They feels like they get superpowers from that crowd. It's going to be a fun one, though. Canfield, they've been heartbreakers, though. That's what the Cardinals do. They break your heart. They go in, they're road warriors, and they get wins all the time on the road. So Canfield, I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to do it. I'm excited. It's going to definitely be one of the premier matchups this week.
Ty Beaver Local, they were fired up and ready to go. They ruined the debut of the East Liverpool new turf with a 65-0 victory. Still, Jefferson still has the most points by a YSN team by 1. So Beaver Local could not get 66. So Jefferson still has that flag, but second is now Beaver Local. They were the better team from the kickoff.
There was no mercy. I mean, it was Karate Kid style, right? Cobra Kai, no mercy.
Right, no mercy.
no mercy.
There's no mercy in this dojo.
And there was none given to the Potters. And when these two teams get together, not often do you see these kind of blowouts. It's always a usually competitive matchup, but not in this case. Beaver Local put their heads down and they just steamrolled all the way through their rivals in an emphatic victory.
We talked about it Friday. Like, Beaver Local couldn't afford a loss. They were 1-2 on the season. Yes, it was a tough 3 games against a really good schedule, but they could not afford to go 1-3, and they kind of played with a little bit of urgency. Like, they needed this win. It was almost a must-win game for them.
Similar to what we saw Crestview kind of play with too. It's just kind of that desperation, that kind of that need to win. We need a victory this week, and you saw the scores being similar in both those games.
We talked about Champion a little bit ago. This game got wacky towards the end. It turned into a thriller, but Champion was able to hold on to the 29-24 victory over Newton Falls. Big win for the Flashes, who are now 2-2 on the season, and they're 1-0 in the conference. They could be sneaky contenders in that MVAC great tier. I think they have a very good quarterback in Joey Fell.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Joey Fell's one of those guys that can kind of do it all, run, pass. He has the option to do both. He was a 1,000 guy a year ago, so he's one of those threats definitely anytime the ball is in his hands. And I'm excited to see what the Flashes can do going forward. They definitely prove they can play in a competitive, close game down to the wire to get a close victory.
But Joey's got some help in the backfield. One of the most untalked about players, I think, in the MVAC great tier right now is Nick Vesey out of the backfield. He's doing a lot of good things for the Flashes and making it a 1-2 punch so defenses can't just key in on Joey Fell. So Vesey is someone to look out for when you're talking about Champions offense.
It's going to be exciting going forward to see how they're going to perform in this next week's battle.
We talked to Coach Conrad before the season. I think he had the right energy for this team. You know, he was an alumni of Champion. He cared so much about the program. I think he's got this team in the right direction. I really do. I think they're going to get a handful of more wins before the season is over.
JFK did what JFK usually does in week 1, right? Week 2, they were that close
for scheduling JFK.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately.
Rootstown, they lost 25-22. They were that close to beating a 4-0 Rootstown Rovers team right now.
So
Southeast, I thought impressive. Southeast is now 2-2. They dominated Southeast from the start. And I think this close win against Newton Falls was big too. They play LeBray before going home against Garfield in week 6, but they're away against LeBray, and another opportunity for Champion to get themselves 3-2 on the season.
And this was a Southeast team that last year beat Champion in overtime, if you remember that.
Yeah.
So,
Southeast and Champion in the last few years have had some pretty good battles, but not in this case. This season, they definitely, the Flashes were shining bright against the Pirates.
Les Champions sends a little bit of a message to the MVAC. We are here and we are ready to fight. It is time for our second break of the day as we pay some more bills. When we come back, we have more results to get to over the weekend. We still have to finish Friday. We have a couple of Saturday results from soccer and football and volleyball as well. And then we have power rankings to get to as well as we continue the Monday edition of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Locally owned and operated, Sheely's relaxed shopping experience means browsing and lounging is always encouraged. Find flex deal and more at Sheely's Furniture and Appliance, because the best things in life happen at home.
How lucky are we to have not one, but two 18-hole Donald Ross Championship golf courses right here in our backyards. Mill Creek Golf Course was selected by Golf Week as one of America's 30 best municipal courses, continuing to challenge golfers of all levels and featuring golf instruction by PGA professionals, a state-of-the-art practice range, a PGA of America recognized pro shop, kids programs, and a relaxing grill room for a memorable golf experience. For more information or to schedule a tee time, visit millcreekmetroparks.org.
Fall is in the air. The kids are back to school, the crowds are cheering for the home team, and Myers Family Insurance is prepped for another crazy Medicare season. Every year there's changes, some big, some small, so it's important to have a conversation to make sure your plan is going to meet your expectations for the coming year. Give our team a call today to schedule your annual review.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance or visit us on the web. Check us out online at myersfamilyins.com.
Going from mindful to mindful sometimes requires a helping, healing hand. Insight Clinical Counseling and Wellness offers a continuum of mental health and wellness care. At Insight, we're changing the way you receive counseling and wellness services with experienced licensed clinicians and expertly trained wellness staff. With 4 locations in Mahoning and Columbiana County, along with telehealth services, Insight offers clients quick access to care when they need it. Transform your mental health and wellness at Insight Clinical Counseling and Wellness.
Hi, this is Zell Bush. Hi, this is Tom Flynn. Hi. Hi, this is Rich Security from WRS Wealth Advisors. Our provider 80 years of experience with WRS Wealth Advisors in the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Call 330-965-0370 to learn more about our individual and corporate financial planning services.
Or visit WRSwealth.com.
Go Raiders.
Go Dog.
Go Cats. Go Dogs. Go Tigers.
Jimmy Sugman here, Director of Isle, Purple Cat, and Golden String. We are happy to support YSN and 2 of my favorite people, Scotty Mincher and Super Dave O'Malley. We are an agency that provides services for adults with disabilities. We infuse humor, passion, and joy into their lives. If you know of any folks with disabilities that need our assistance, please contact us.
Reliability, innovation, scale. These 3 values are those we look forward to in our business and in our team. If you're ready for a reliable employer who looks constantly to think outside the box in big ways, we're ready for you. Apply now. Help us push the envelope and deliver success. Envelope 1. Take that one extra step.
Winter, spring, summer, and fall. Mill Creek Metro Parks is your park for all seasons. Make a memory in the park. Plan your visit today at millcreekmetroparks.org.
Oh, crumbling. Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by our good friends, as always, over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig with you. And we look to finish the week of recaps, the weekend of recaps. We left off with Champion beating Newton Falls 29-24. We continue our recaps by saying that Laurel was able to beat Mohawk 49-7 in that game, and Mohawk gets back to action after being off last week.
Yeah, and I mean, getting introduced to PA style of football up there.
And we also have the final from Edgewood as they got the 56-21 win over Orange. Warriors still representing Ashtabula County pretty well.
Yeah, we got both of those teams now representing the YSN banner too. So Edgewood getting the win over Orange and getting another big win, like you said, in Ashtabula County.
The Rockets of Lowville got that tiger-sized monkey off of their back. They had a battle on their hands. Springfield trying to come back late, but the Rockets win 42-24. They knock the Tigers to 0-4 on the season. Lowville still undefeated. This was a statement game for everybody in Lowville country.
They needed this win, right? They needed it to prove to everyone and to prove to themselves that they could be the top dogs of this conference now. And like we said too, Springfield's top until they're not. And right now, I feel like you got to crown Lowville top until someone knocks them off, right?
Well, yeah, they're not anymore. Right? The Tigers aren't the top of the conference right now. They still could be. They haven't lost. Still a lot of football to go. They could very well win the MVAC. They're not out of the race, but right now, not in the top spot for the first time in a long time.
You feel like Lowville's the favorite now that they do beat Springfield, but Jackson Milton, Mineral Ridge might want a award with you.
Lowville sitting there like, okay, we beat Springfield, and then looking around like, what do you mean other teams in the MVAC are all of a sudden good too? Last year, if you beat Springfield, that was it. Like you were golden. And that's all the only team really had to beat, because last year all these other teams were kind of struggling. They were in that mid factor. Now that Lowville beats Springfield, they're sitting there like, I got Jackson Milton on my heels, and I got Middle Ridge right on my heels too. What the heck's this?
It's going to be good matchups when they face off, too. There's going to be some great quarterback battles because there's some great quarterbacks in this conference.
Indeed. Salem, tough loss to a good Canton Central Catholic team. Back and forth battle, maybe the most entertaining game of the night on Friday, but these Quakers do fall 35-31.
I think get some respect on Canton Central Catholic's name and some more respect on that South Range win against Canton Central Catholic as well. This is a very good Crusaders team, and they showed it once again against Salem too. You can't underestimate them. Not that Salem did, but they're the Canton Central Catholic's never a team to be taken lightly. They can beat the best of them.
That's Salem's first loss of the season. Good news for them, though, it is not a conference loss, so they're still right there. And West Branch already has a loss too. So when you talk about conference standings, Salem's kind of right there. Carrollton's having a good season as well. They're 3-1, and Alliance is 3-1. So there is no undefeated team in the EBC anymore, as every team has at least one loss. And I think those four are kind of tied at 3-1 before conference play starts.
Conference play is going to be nuts when it starts for the EBC.
Carrollton had their first loss of the season as well in week 4. They played Garaway, I believe, who gave South Range a pretty good scare in the playoffs last year too.
Yeah, and I mean, those are two really good teams going at it. Garaway showed that they're going to be a good team again this year.
So the EBC looking very interesting when Salem plays Alliance, plays Carrollton. Obviously, when they play West Branch, that's going to be a good one. But the EBC right now has 4 teams all sitting at 3-1.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun once the conference play opens up.
Boardman, you talk about teams that let off frustration. They had a couple of really tough non-conference. I guess they're not a conference in football, but unfamiliar out of area play teams. They lost to Cheney in the game that they were competitive in for a little bit. Obviously, the loss to Mooney. They were struggling, but they let out all their frustrations. They won't beat Mooney, but they struggled against Mooney, I should say. 40-13, they beat Howland in a game that everyone thought was going to be a close one. Boardman said, not today.
Huge win for the Spartans, too, after taking one on the chin against the Polar Bears the week prior. And, I mean, Boardman really responded, and they did so emphatically, getting win number 2 on the season.
Now they're 2-2 on the year as they venture into the rest of their schedule. It's a tough schedule for Boardman. It does not get easy at all.
I mean, when you're in that Division 2, you have to play those Division 1 teams if you want some of those extra computer points. That's the kind of the double-edged sword of it too. And everyone you play is kind of below you too. That's locally. Not too many local Division 2 teams, so you got to bring them in out of town. But for Boardman right now, they are right at 16. So that win was good enough to put them in the playoff picture right now.
We go into Friday. The scores that were reported to us. Of course, Lindsley had a big second half. 28
28 unanswered points.
28 unanswered points in the second half as they beat Mooney 28-14 in West Virginia.
Unfortunate too, because Mooney's defense was playing well enough to win. Offense got them the lead, but just couldn't sustain it all 4 quarters. And unfortunately, they learned the hard way too. You let up on 1 quarter, it can lose you a ball game.
Ashton O'Brien adds 2 more touchdown passes to his belt, though, as he got the 2 touchdowns to 2 different receivers, spreading the ball around quite a bit. He's still an impressive quarterback, learning the game, I think. You're going to see the growth of Ashton O'Brien as the season goes on. Mooney still has a good chance to make the playoffs because they have almost exclusively upper division teams. So even though they're sitting at 1-3 right now, they have plenty of chances for computer points, and I think they'll get a couple of wins. And we keep saying it, if they get into the playoffs, if they make enough wins to get into the playoffs, they're just a dangerous football team because of who they play.
Yeah, that Lake Catholic team that they ended up beating was a Division 4 team. They came very, very close to beating both Boardman and Cheney, a Division 2 and Division 3 opponent. Right now, Cardinal Mooney's number 17 in Division 5 standings.
They're 1-3 and they're 17.
They're just
that tells you. They're rooting for Lake Center Catholic every week because they need those wins to get computer rankings. And, we'll see what they continue to do. I think Mooney, the way they're standing right now, the schedule they look at, I think 4 wins is a guaranteed playoff spot. 3 could get them in.
It definitely could. I mean, you look at their schedule too and what they have left, it's definitely possible that Mooney can make that move, I guess, into the top 16 easily, I think, with some of these wins. They're going to be playing a couple of Division 2 teams in Warren Harding and then Brush too, which right now look like they could be potentially winnable games. Both of those teams being 1-3 right now could be winnable games against Division 2 opponents for Cardinal Mooney. And if you win those 2 games, I think that more than is enough to push you into the playoffs.
If you're Mooney, you want to beat them and then root for them the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. But then this is going to be an interesting schedule for them too. And then like your teams like Youngstown East that they're going to have to play 2 Division 4 opponent. Those are points too.
Still up a division.
Yep, exactly. So that's it. There's no bias when it comes to division rankings.
Edison continues to impress. They won over Matthews, and they held that high-flying Matthews offense to 14 points, I believe was the final score there. I'm gonna check. I didn't get a graphic for that one, but I did get a story on ysnlive.com, which is a good plug to go over to the site and check out the stories and recaps at ysnlive.com, and make sure you get there. Edison did get the win. They got it in pretty dominant fashion. They're 4-0 on the season. They're starting to open some eyes. I saw them get some votes in the power ranking voting.
Yeah, I think I was one of the ones that voted for him, and that was a 3-0 Matthews team that was going into that game too.
They'd scored 113 points in the last 2 games.
They absolutely took it to that Matthews team 48-10. I think that was an impressive enough win that, and we've talked with Coach Colopy before too, and I was impressed with that victory, namely just because of how they did it and how they sustained it the whole game. They from quarter 1 to 4 said, we are winning this ball game. We accept nothing else.
I think we got to try to get Coach Colopy back on this week.
It definitely could be I think would be a good one too to bring them on, especially considering that they have a chance to go 5-0. But I think this next week game that we're going to be seeing from Edison too, when they have to go up against Toronto on the 23rd for week 6.
Right. I mean, Toronto, it's not this week, it's next week. But Toronto, like you said, lighting the world on fire in Division 7.
That could be one of those games too where, I mean, every win you get will open some eyes for sure. You got to play Steubenville Central Catholic this week, Toronto next week, but those are both games too. You win this week, and if for sure you win next week, I feel like if you just keep winning, it's going to be hard to deny the Wildcats.
And then, of course, the game of the high build game of the night. It was the site of YSN Primetime, Valley Christian. They got the impressive, emphatic win over United, and that was an eye opener. I think everyone thought that game would be competitive. It was for a minute, and then Valley Christian just said no more. They kind of had a really big second half. Their defense did enough. They didn't stop United per se, but they had enough stops to really make this and no doubt Valley Christian was the better team that night kind of game. Your mic's muted.
I said, correction on myself from earlier in the show. I believe I said Valley Christian was 4. They're actually ranked 5 in Division 6, but that win also pushed them up to 5. It pushed United down to 10, but both these teams still in the playoff picture, still well within the playoff hunt. But the big thing for Valley Christian now, if you're in that top 8, you host that first round, and that's huge for Valley.
And let's be honest, they're not just in the playoff picture. Both these teams are still in the EAC picture, too. Obviously, Valley is absolutely in it. But United, they had that one loss we talked about a little bit earlier. All you really have to do is beat Southern and then hope that Southern can knock off Valley Christian and you create some chaos.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely plausible for them. They definitely, United is capable of beating all these teams for sure. And that, like we said, that October 7th game, it's going to mean a lot. Valley and Southern too. That's going to be a big one as well.
I know this. It's October 7th. So
yeah,
we got all these big games on October 7th, man. Garfield, Crestview. You said what, the Lowville and Milton, or is it Lowville Ridge?
Let me see what Lowville was.
There was another, both in VAC. They were both.
I believe you're right. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, that the October 7th, it's Southern, and then it's Valley Christian. That's going to be a big one as well. And Lowville right now. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. There it is. Lowville in October 7th. No, that's McDonald. It wasn't Lowville. They're playing Jackson Milton this week.
Well, let's go to this week and say, whoa, battle for first place.
Yeah, this could be definitely a battle. They play Ridge on the 14th, but Ridge plays Springfield. You gotta figure this is the case too. If Ridge loses to Springfield, Lowville beats Jackson Milton. Lowville's top dog. Jackson Milton beats Lowville, and Ridge loses to Springfield. Jackson Milton has to be considered top dog then, and you have to. There's no other reason not to.
No, I mean, if that were to happen, if Ridge loses to Springfield and Jackson Milton knocks off Lowville, that'd be like the perfect chain of events for Jackson Milton because they'd be sitting in first place.
Yeah, but Ridge. But their biggest thing is there's not going to be a 3-way tie. There is going to be a loss between Jackson Milton and Lowville. This is huge too because for Lowville, they have to go to Jackson Milton this week.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I mean, Jackson Milton's a tough place to play too. This is going to be a chance for Jackson Milton to kind of prove themselves, I think, once again to anybody else that might be doubting them. I mean, I think they're gaining believers every single week. They definitely gained me after winning against Western Reserve. I don't know what we're going to do with picks going into Friday because this is going to be a wild game. 2 4-0 teams.
I tell you, I'm right now, this is way too early prediction because there's still a lot of time to make a pick. I'm still leaning towards Lowville. Jackson Milton has found ways to win, but they haven't looked super impressive in their wins over Newton Falls and Western Reserve. And Lowville has just looked really, really good. I'm leaning Lowville. That could change. Who knows? There's a lot of time between now and when we make our picks on Friday. But I'm leaning the Rockets right now. It's like 60-40.
Yeah, and I mean the 3-way tie is huge too. Mineral Ridge can also take care of business and make sure they keep their name right up in that race too. But they have a tough task in trying to beat a Springfield Tigers team that's trying to prevent an 0-5 start. And you know they're going to be motivated to ensure that doesn't happen.
Chris Sigler saying the disparities between the top half and the bottom half of these conferences make more of a stake with computer rankings to the line when it when the top teams play each other. So not only are we talking about conference, things at stake, but Chris is right. Like this is your chance to get computer points.
Absolutely. And for teams that are maybe out of it in the conference, you still need that win to get yourself situated for playoffs. Like with the NE8, it's divided into Division 3 teams, 4, and Division 5 teams. There's teams all over in different regions too, looking to make that jump into the playoffs and make that jump to state too. Because the goal, right, you want to win conference too. But the ultimate goal for a lot of these teams, make the playoffs, get yourself into a position to make that run to state, right? That's the ultimate goal. If you can't win the conference, I mean, you put all your eggs into the state basket, but it's kind of like, let's win those conference games. If we win the conference, it's great, right? You still want to put those conference games as big games, but when you're out of the conference, you still play for playoffs, and that's the biggest thing. There's no teams that are kind of taking games off or nothing to play for. They're still playing for big games and computer points.
Tyler, let's point this out. Last year, Lakeview, I believe, was the only NE8 team that did not make the playoffs. Could we see all 8 NE8 teams in the playoffs this year?
It's possible. It's definitely possible. You got to get some wins along the way too. They've all garnered. I don't think there's a winless NE8 team right now. I think every NE8 team has minimal 2 wins or 1 win at least.
Struthers has 1, and I think they're the only one with 1 win, if I'm not mistaken, because Niles has 2. Gerard's undefeated. South Range is undefeated. Poland has 2 wins now.
The only thing
that win against Louisville was big for Poland. That's up division.
Struthers, the only thing that's going to be hard for Struthers is that they really needed to kind of win 2 of those non-conference games, because now they're going to have to try to get some wins in the conference.
Yeah, but I think like Struthers matches up well against Niles. They match up well against Lakeview. They match up well against Jefferson. They're going to beat each other up, but if they can spread out the wins, I think there's a possibility.
It'd be wild if every single.
We were so close last year. The only team out was Lakeview. I mean.
It was close matchups last year. It's going to be exciting going into this
4
year.
wins was enough to get Jefferson in last year.
What was it?
4 wins was enough to get Jefferson in that 16 spot last year, I think, in Division 5. So 4 wins. They had 3 wins in the regular conference, and they ended the regular season by beating up Division Lakeview. So pretty sure Jefferson got it in.
Let me double check.
You can look in the archives for me, Ty.
I'll double check.
I might get exposed. My knowledge might get exposed.
Yeah, Anthony's not a professional. They were 19th a year ago. They were just on the out.
They were 6 of 18. 6 of 8.
You were right though. They had 4 wins though. You were right on the 4 victories.
So they were 6 of 8 NE8 teams. Okay, well
there were 6.
That makes it less exciting.
75% of the conference made the playoffs, which is still.
I still think all 8 could get in this year. Fight me on it.
They already are 3-1. Jefferson is. They're off to a great start. They have a chance as well. Lakeview has a great chance. I think there's definitely potential for these teams to make that kind of run.
All right, so we go
18 conferences. It's tough. It's tough with 8-team conferences to get them all in. It is.
I
tough.
think we could do it. I think we could do it. Because really, I mean, if they can all get, like, even if Lakeview has that win against Niles is big, because that's up 2 divisions. Niles is 3, right? Or did they move down to 4? They were 3 last year. I can't keep track of where these teams moved.
It is hard. I don't blame you. They are. I'm trying to see all the 3 teams. I believe Hubbard is one of the.
Hubbard's 3.
Yeah, Hubbard.
I can't confidently say that. Oh, I need a cheat sheet for
it. Is, yeah, you really do. With all these things, how they moved recently, it's tough to keep up with. No, Niles is 4. Niles is 4. They're in region 13.
All right. Well, let's just scrap that. Let's let's go to our power rankings, Ty. Let's look at our power rankings for football in week 4 power rankings. Look at this. We have a new number 1. Austintown Fitch does enough. They get the number 1 spot. Canfield 2, South Range 3, Cheney 4, Warren JFK 5, Girard 6, Lowville 7, West Branch 8, Valley Christian 9, and then you have Ursuline at 10. What do you think, Ty?
I think it's I mean, you see it. There was a lot of confidence, I think, in the voters, too, to push Fitch to 1 after the big win against Ursuline, too. This is, I think, what we've seen is that Fitch, Canfield, South Range, Cheney, and Ursuline were really in that top 5. Ursuline suffering their first loss, now out. I'm more than okay inserting JFK in that top 5 spot now and kind of having them as a placeholder for that. I think they're going to be one of those teams we're talking about. But then, honestly, what I really like is you see a lot of a big string of 4-0 teams that are in the top rankings too, and I think it should be like that. We have plenty of 4-0 teams to pick from. I understand the 2 teams that have the 1 loss. I think they are deserving of getting recognized and being mentioned in Ursuline and Westbridge, more than deserving. But I like it. I like the way it ranks out too, and I think with the matchups we have coming up in the future, especially this week, namely, it's going to be 2 versus 4 in Canfield versus Cheney.
So here's this is a question every week because there are undefeated teams that are not on this rankings, and of course there's 2 teams with 1 loss. And I think everyone understands like how good of a football team West Branch and Ursuline are, and if you were to put them on the field with maybe a Jackson Milton, okay, we understand like on paper it's a mismatch. But at the same time, and there's that argument that like, hey, Jackson Milton's done their job, they're 4-0, Middle Ridge done their job, they're 4-0, and then in the same conference, Lowville's in there, they're in the rankings, they're 3-0 too. 4-0 too. So and then Edison's 4-0. You got some undefeated teams. I guess the argument every week is this real like everyone votes differently. So I guess the argument is, are we literally going with the 10 best football teams, or do we kind of reward teams that maybe wouldn't be better head-to-head if they matched up with each other, but have done the work and have earned their way into the spot?
We break it down with points per where these guys get voted, where the teams get voted, and where they get placed. And the beautiful thing is everyone gets a vote, though. Right. So, I mean, we have literally people of different opinions and what they think the top 10 should be. Everyone gets voiced in this, and this is how these teams kind of get shuffled out.
And this, I'll be full disclosure, my vote was crap this week because I got so I got so excited about some new schools that I thought deserved to be like maybe talked about or put in, that I completely forgot about some that were obvious and that needed to be in. And I was like, oh, I was just so excited about some new schools that are 4-0 that looked really impressive. They continue to look really impressive. I thought conference play would be a test for these teams, and they earned it. And I was like, man, okay, we got to get. And I've completely missed a couple of obvious teams that need to be on the list because I got so excited about putting some new teams in there.
I think the top 5 is pretty much what you're going to see until one of these teams drop. What if the loser, the Canfield Cheney game, I don't know, might drop out of the top 5. You might see.
I think Gerard has a chance to get into the top 5.
I think so as well.
If Canfield loses and it's not a blowout, do they drop all the way out of 2 down to 6? I don't know. That'll be up to the voters. But Gerard definitely has a chance this week to get another win. And one of those teams is going to lose because it's 2 versus 4.
Listen. Girard is number 1 in Region 13 and Division 4, above West Branch, above Jefferson, above Salem. Girard is number 1 right now. That number 1 ranked team in all those divisions, and it's namely because they got those big wins across the board. They beat Ellett, they beat Streetsboro, and those were 2 big wins for them. That Ellett win was huge, actually. Division 2 opponent, and the way they did it, 42-13, was huge.
And the fact that Ellett keeps getting wins helps them out too.
They go to Lakeview this week. That's a sneaky good game for Girard, going to Lakeview to play the Bulldogs.
It's because if Girard loses, that's losing to a down division school. So that's going to hurt them even more.
You're right, because Lakeview's Division 5. So Girard's in a case where they can lose a lot more than us. Spot for the NE8 championship too, for the conference championship. They can lose their number 1 spot that they're holding in the division too.
So I think 1 through 5 is pretty solid. Obviously, we have a matchup between 2 and 4 this week. Like I said, I don't know if Cheney loses, they probably drop out of the top 5. But do you drop Canfield from 2 out of the top 5?
We saw Ursuline drop from 4 to 10, like almost.
They lost to number 1. Fitch was
2, right? Yeah, Fitch was 2 last week. They lost to
number 2, and they dropped all the way from
almost dropped off the list. Like some of these voters heartless to Ursuline too.
I
Almost.
think it was the way. Like, okay, they were down 42 to 7.
Yeah,
They were getting themselves handed to.
Also, though, I mean, Valley Christian, I think more than deserving, making their first appearance on the list. That win and how they won against United.
His first ever appearance on the list, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, in any power rankings, basketball or football.
We love to see it too. First time. Welcome to the list, Valley Christian and the Eagles. We hope you like your stay and see if they could keep winning too. They're going to have another fun matchup inside their conference this week as well.
So I think West Branch has always been the one that's been talked about since they got on after losing to Canfield. They're 3-1 now. They jumped Ursuline. I think that's probably the biggest contest point that people are going to have this week is that Ursuline and West Branch are both 3-1, and West Branch is above them. I think a lot of people. It depends what side of this you're on, but I think a lot of people might think that Ursuline is just a better football team than West Branch based on what they've done when they've matched up with each other in the past couple of years. But it's all about timing, right? Like Ursuline got the loss while West Branch took an undefeated team that hadn't given up more than 30 points in 38 straight games, and they scored 38 on them. So I think that's why they're ahead of them. I mean, it's just the timing of it.
To be real, you take the punches as they happen in a heavyweight fight, right? And you got to take it 1 week at a time. So you will see big drops. You're going to see small drops. It's depending on how everyone feels. Everyone votes with kind of a little bit different of a mindset with it. But you're going to see drops based on what happens and when it happens during the season. But I tell you what, this is a good Warren Harding team that Ursuline's scheduled to face this week. They're going to Warren Harding. I don't care that the Raiders are 1-3. They're always a solid athletic team. Ursuline gets a win. Between Canfield Cheney, someone's losing there. There might be another surprise loss in this top 10. There's more than enough time for Ursuline to climb right back up this list again.
Here's the big question. Like, do Ursuline's win start to get them back over undefeated teams? Like, do they jump Valley Christian? Because obviously the schedules are so different.
But you see, it's going to be a different opinion to each voter you ask. To me, I feel like there's got to be a really good case to put any kind of one-loss team over undefeated teams like that too. Depending on
the schedule differential a big enough case?
I feel like with the teams these undefeated teams that we have on our schedule right now on our top 10, I feel like all of them have at least one convincing enough win inside that undefeated streak that denotes them to be up here.
At the end of the day, you either have to suspend disbelief for the schedule, or you have to use it almost exclusively, because to compare these team schedules is almost to the point unfair. Like,
no,
Valley Christian is never going to play the teams that Ursuline plays. It's never, ever
have to hold it. You can't treat it equally. You got to treat it kind of like with equity. You got to treat it fairly, right? Per division, the kind of opponents face in their division.
It's towing that line, because you don't want to disregard the fact that Ursuline went out and played Warren Harding, which is a really good team. But at the same time, it's like, at some point, it's like Valley can only play who's in front of them. At what point do you start to not compare the two schedules?
Well, the thing is, I think I don't know if there's a point where you can't compare the two. There's certain points where I feel like you have to. Those conference opponents, those big games, Valley beating United is a big win for them. I would put Valley and United for their region, their kind of realm. It was just as big of a game that Ursuline was facing, I think, against Austintown this week. I mean, it's the same case. Both teams were undefeated going into that. Valley got the big win. That's why Valley got on there too. And to a lot of the voters too, Valley got the bigger win too. That big win was a bigger win than Ursuline dropping that one. They put Valley over Ursuline because of that win too. And
let's just look at the reality. I mean, like, schedule wise, before that United game, Valley Christian had 3 opponents with a combined 1 win, right? So at some point you have to either nail that schedule coffin into the, you have to either be exclusive with schedules, or you have to kind of just be like, hey, teams are going to play who's in front of them. They have to take care of business. Valley they never struggled at all against any of those teams. So they took the teams that were in front of them. They took care of business. And then, of course, United was undefeated, and they beat United pretty handedly too. So, yeah, I'm totally okay with Valley Christian being over Ursuline. And honestly, I wouldn't have been mad if they were over West Branch too, if it was flipped and West Branch was 9.
I wouldn't be mad either.
Valley was 8.
You have to treat each team fairly with what they have to face in front of them, and the level of opponents they're going to face for their divisions as well. And if they're going to be playing up division schools too, I think it's a huge factor to talk about in certain team schedules, the level of competition that they're facing, because if they're able to beat that level of competition, that has to be used as a measuring stick between these teams too. So I think Valley, though, getting that big conference win against a United team that's perennial at the tops of the EOAC competing for it and being able to do so in such dominating fashion, I think for whether or not they're a Division 6 school or Division 2 school, that's impressive enough to get them a spot on this top 10 power ranking.
To play devil's advocate, West Branch had their most impressive win of the season this week.
Yeah. And
so they were already in the rankings, and it's hard to jump them when they beat a undefeated Ridgewood team that once again had 38 straight games of not letting 30 points or more. And West Branch beat them 38-14.
The beautiful thing about a weekly power ranking is you can ask the question, what have you done for me lately? Well, lately, Ursuline dropped a tough game too that Fitch was dominating for a large part of. West Branch beat a team that was notoriously a very good offense and held them to 14 points. What have you done for me lately? A lot of the voters went with West Branch's win more recently, this last week was more impressive. More impressive than Ursuline's last 3 weeks too. It's they dropped the game this week. Ursuline won, or West Branch won. To the voters, they jumped Ursuline too with West Branch.
All right, I agree or disagree. Jackson Milton is the team that is not on this list that has the best chance to make it next week.
Jackson Milton has a good one. I think Mineral Ridge has a good one. I think I voted for Edison to be in this top 10 somewhere.
But out of all those teams, Jackson Milton's playing Lowville, right? So they have the best chance to get into the list.
I think so. If Jackson Milton beats Lowville, might see Jackson Milton replace Lowville.
For my votes, they're in. If they beat Lowville, they're in my vote. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, I feel like they replace Lowville then. I mean, if Jackson Milton straight up plays Lowville and beats them, I mean, you put a lot of eggs into the Lowville wins, right? They're 4-0. But again, you got to look at the opponent. Springfield, yeah, that's a great Springfield team that they beat, but they now have a test against a 4-0 team. Springfield has yet to win their first game of the season yet. So
at some point, Springfield has to be treated like a winless team, right? They're getting credit for their name. Okay, that's a big win because it's Spring, but at some point, it's okay, Springfield's 0-5, 0-4, excuse me.
Yeah, so this is going to be a test week for Lowville, but you got to flip it too. Lowville beats Jackson Milton. Does that kind of solidify? Is that another big enough win to kind of solidify a spot on this list for Lowville?
I mean, if no one else, obviously someone's going to lose between Canfield and Cheney. Maybe if that Lowville wins is impressive enough, they can jump one of those two teams, and one of those two teams can fall out of the top 6, and Lowville can get into the top 6. But you look at those teams ahead of Lowville, it's hard to get in that club.
Before we get to our volleyball power rankings, I need to ask this too. Are there any teams safe from dropping completely out of this list this week? Out of the top 10 teams, any of these teams lose? Is any team safe from dropping out?
Canfield will not drop out of the top 10 with a loss. Neither would Cheney. They're both playing. They're playing each other, right? So you lose that game. You're high enough on the list. I don't think you drop completely out of the top 10.
It's just you keep them on. Who do you move up? I mean, that's so many questions.
And it also it depends on what happens in the rest of the. If some of these undefeated teams that are sitting out of the rankings lose too, then it's a lot easier to keep them on. If Middle Ridge loses and Edison loses, all of a sudden it's really easy to keep them on.
You're in that top 5 right now with all those teams in the top 5 being 4-0. Usually, I feel like if any of those top 5 teams were to suffer a loss, you'd still see them on the power ranking the next week. Just like Ursuline, they'll at least hang on, I think, at some point.
I will say there are some of our voters that are really eager to get some of these small teams into the rankings. So they might be really quick to move you out if you lose once.
You know what? That's why I love the opinions of the different voters, though, man. Because you really get, I guess, the best neutral look at these power rankings because it's everyone's opinion that's taken into account.
Like Canfield fans are probably sitting there like, well, what the heck? We won 42 to
We've
nothing.
literally done nothing but win every single week.
Right? Like, so they're probably sitting there like, what the heck are we doing at 2 now? I get it. Like, it's just like I said with West Branch and Valley down there in the bottom 2 spots. It's all about timing. And Fitch had a really, really good win this week.
Fitch plays Lewis J. Bennett from Buffalo this week. Canfield plays Cheney. For our voters, they know Cheney as an opponent a lot more than they know Lewis J. Bennett. So it can definitely, if both Fitch and Canfield come away victorious, they could
flip again.
Yeah, they could flip right back just because people know Cheney, they know the name, and they might be quick to vote Canfield. And honestly, we all know Cheney better too. So,
and then like there are some guys that still had Canfield at number 1 this week. It wasn't Fitch was not undisputed number 1. So
no, it was definitely contested. There was and with good reason. These are 2 really good teams. Fitch in Division 2.
Unfortunately, we don't see them play each other.
Yeah, unfortunately this year, but both these teams have a chance at making a solid run in their respective divisions, and I'm excited for it.
That'd be a good battle of the birds.
It definitely would.
Tell you what, 1 versus 2. We'll go to volleyball, and the week 2 of volleyball power rankings is out. Lakeview and Crestview both get the 1-2 spot. So as the social media release said, the view is good at the top. Both Lakeview and Crestview are sitting at the 1 and 2 spots. Gerard right there at 3. Then you got Fitch at 4, Middle Ridge 5. You got Wellsville, who got 3 great wins on the week. They jumped from out of the rankings into 6. You have East Liverpool, also a new member of the power rankings, coming in at 7. Western Reserve at 8. Another new member, Badger, who's right now sneakily 7-1 in volleyball at 9. McDonald stays in at 10 despite the loss to Middle Ridge this week.
Yeah, tough loss to Ridge, but I feel like it was right to keep McDonald on, considering they had a win against the number 8 team in this in straight sets earlier. I think, honestly, I really like this top 10 list, and similar to football, I feel that top 5, it's going to be hard to crack. Wellsville is one of those teams. You could almost make the top 6. Wellsville now has made their case as one of the top teams, I think, again, after this last week. They finally woke up, the Tigers did.
People were panicking the first week of the volleyball rankings when Wellsville wasn't on there. What did I say? I said, hey, guys, it's okay. Wellsville is going to have their chances to prove themselves. They just had 1 test at the start. They lost at the Western Reserve, but they have plenty of games left on their – this was their week, right? And they went and they beat Southern in sweep. They beat Columbian in 4. They swept Fort Fry. 3 wins against 3 really good teams. Boom, boom, boom. You're right in the power rankings.
Yeah, number 6 too, and the top 6 teams are just really good. And East Liverpool, the win against Beaver Local and the way East Liverpool, they've been one of those teams to me that's been sneaky good, because I don't know a ton about those teams. Once you start venturing down towards that West Virginia border, that's really far. So I get my sources from East Liverpool, Beaver Local. McNuggies is kind of the window into that for us too. But East Liverpool is one of those really good teams, and from what I've seen too, with Siggy going down there a lot too, this is a Potters team to be taken serious.
They're 6-0 on the season. I mean, they've kind of changed the script. Last year, they relied so much on Kyle White; it was pretty much setter all the time. She still leads the team in kills and digs, but it's a different team because they do have other options to go to. So teams can't just double block Kyle White and say, beat us now. I think they're a really good team. They're going to play Crestview this year, and that's going to be a good matchup. That's going to be a big test for East Liverpool to see how they can handle the Rebels, who honestly, like, it's as soon as Crestview gets a test, there's going to be a contention between 1 and 2, because I'm telling you, Ty, I've seen Crestview live now. I think they're on paper, like talent wise, they look like the best team in the area.
I really wish Lakeview and Crestview would have scheduled each other this season, but Crestview does play Girard. Crestview does play Fitch, and Chris Sigler's right. East Liverpool's win over Oak Glen is big. Any team that we ever talk to, whether it's Edison, Beaver Local, East Liverpool, they all mention Oak Glen as being like one of those top tier teams that if you can beat them, that's a really good win to say on your schedule.
Middle Ridge just keeps on keeping on. They got the big win over McDonald. They are still undefeated in that MVAC Scarlet tier, and after that win, they stay undefeated at the top. Now they've taken care of the other teams that are kind of on their heels, and both Western Reserve and McDonald both have 1 loss in the conference now. Actually, Western Reserve has 2 because they lost to McDonald earlier. So Middle Ridge sitting pretty at the top spot. They have their second matchup with Western Reserve on Thursday, so that'll be interesting. You look at these teams to also tie. Canfield Fitch tomorrow night, and I think Canfield's a team that's sitting like 11-12 right there just waiting for a big opportunity. And they were in the power rankings in week 1. They knocked out this week. I think they have a chance to get right back in them if they beat Fitch, and I think they can do it.
They certainly can. It's going to be an interesting game, though, because Fitch has looked dominating when it comes to conference games again. They haven't lost a set in the conference. Obviously, that's been different when
Haven't they only played Boardman? Have they played anyone outside of Boardman yet in the conference?
They've played Boardman, they've played Howland, and they've played Harding once.
Harding, okay.
So they've played 3 of the other four teams in their conference once, and they've won in straight sets. They're 9-0 in sets in their conference. Obviously, that's different when it comes to Canfield in years prior, but Falcons are 2 years running as champs in this conference, and they want to continue it for a three-peat. And really, this is the team that they gotta try to beat too. You said this at the start. It's always a very tough Canfield Cardinals team.
What makes that matchup interesting, Ty, in Fitch's only loss of the season. They lost to Lakeview, and Lakeview dominated them through the middle with Tara Lionel. I think she had 20 kills on the night. I should say day. It was a day game. And Canfield's strength this year, not last year, but this year, is their middle. They set their middle a lot. Abby Muckleroy is getting a lot of kills. So you look at that Fitch-Canfield game, Fitch struggles with middle blocking. They don't have an elite middle blocker. Afton Roby doing a very good job, but they couldn't block Tara Lionel, and it's going to be tough to block Abby Muckleroy.
It went from a 1-3 start for the Cards all the way to them being 5-4. They've won 4 of their last 5 now, and they've looked really good. And it's included now. They're on a 9-set straight winning streak after dropping their last game to Mineral Ridge on the 31st of August. They have won 3 straight matches, 9 straight sets going into this Fitch matchup. So
I think there's a loss to McDonald in there they swept McDonald. I'm sorry, they swept McDonald. The other way.
There's a loss.
They lost to Mineral Ridge. Right, my bad.
Mineral Ridge and Western Reserve both have wins on them, and then Girard did in the beginning of the season. But yeah, close losses too. They lost 3-2 in sets to Reserve, 3-2 to Girard too. So close set losses as well. They get some good teams.
Their other loss is to Hoban, who would be on this list if they were on YSN school.
But these teams all Crestview plays Fitch, Crestview plays Girard plays Fitch. These teams all play each other. Right. So I mean, it's gonna shake up these power rankings. And for Crestview, I feel like even though they don't play Lakeview having a win against Girard and Fitch, if Crestview can match that by getting a win against those two teams as well, it's gonna be a toss-up, I think, between our voters of who gets first, Lakeview or Crestview. Then at that point.
Yeah, and don't forget Lakeview still has to play Girard one more time too. I mean, there's still a second matchup in that.
That is true. So if Lakeview does it twice, that's tough to not say Lakeview keeps top spot though. That'd be a tough one. But East Liverpool plays in there as well too. So I don't know. There's going to be a lot of great matchups, a lot of great volleyball that we're in store for. And
I do want to McDonald, when they played against Mineral Ridge, they did not have their setter. Don't want to speculate on what's going on, but Megan Clocker did not play in that game. So that will be a thing to watch because she is so important to what they do. She's one of the best setters in the area. And if they don't have her, it's going to be real tough for them to continue to win at the rate that they are. So got to keep an eye on McDonald as they try to get their setter back. I have no idea what's going on, not speculating at all, of course, but that's a big loss for them.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting going forward because this is a conference race that we have on our hands, but Mineral Ridge has taken some big steps to trying to capture it.
While we venture into talking about tonight's tie, we go into Mineral Ridge Volleyball. We put them on highlight because they have a chance to have a milestone night tonight. Sam Aulette is just 23 assists away from getting her 1,000th career assist as a junior in that program. She already has a chance. Remember, she's a junior, but she didn't set her freshman year because Danielle Aulette, her sister, was the setter. So she's about to get 1,000 in 2 seasons. Not even 2 seasons, a season and a half, which is just unreal. You there?
I'm excited to see what she could do for her senior season too. I mean, just to see how she's already been able to have so much success in the short time that she's been in that position. and she continues to put it together, and she still has over half a season left here.
Yeah, just to put it in perspective, last year, which was her first year as a varsity setter, let's see, she put up, let me get ball handling, it's at the end. She put up 742 assists. Like, my word. That's incredible. And already this year, let's just bring it up. She is set with one more. Come on. She has 232 assists right now.
Wow. That's incredible too. That these triple digit numbers that we're already seeing, 232 is insane right now for numbers as far as assists go. And for Sam Aulette to have that kind of number, it just tells me that she is just setting up offense all over. Because I don't know if there's one person that, I mean, they have plenty though. I feel like there's multiple attackers in that Mineral Ridge program. I want to look at their stats now and just see.
They have Olivia Booth and then they have Faith Schneider on the outside. They have Ava Hewlett, the sophomore, that is very good on the outside as well. And then they have Gianna Paris on the right side too.
You have two girls. You have Schneider with 93, Hewlett with 88, and then Booth with 49 kills. And then you have Loeb and then Aulette over 20 kills themselves. And then Wilson also has 18, like distributing kills everywhere on the court too. And that makes this team so dangerous. Also too, Aulette with 23 aces on the season. Like, she's one of those girls that can just really do it all. And then you see her dig count too, 68 digs as well. Not bad. 10 assists a set.
According to Max Preps, she is 26 assists away from 1,000. She is sitting at 974 right now. So she needs 26 assists tonight. They play Lake Center Christian in Middle Ridge. I will be there on the call for that one, as Sam Aulette goes for 1,000 career assists in just her second season setting for the Rams. It's going to be remarkable if she's able to pull that off.
She definitely has a really good opportunity tonight, and she's been one of those catalysts for this program for the last couple of years.
And then tomorrow night, we're going to have another probable milestone as Canfield's Riley Kincaid is set to get her 1,000th career assist as well as a senior. So Canfield trying to get not just a win over Fitch, but also to try to get her senior a career milestone. That would be the second straight year where they have gotten a career milestone from the home game against Fitch. Last year, Abby Householder got her 1,000th career kill against Fitch at home. So they're trying to do it for the second year in a row, make a milestone game at home against Austintown Fitch.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be exciting to see what comes of that conference battle, too. It's going to be a big one for the AAC.
What else we have going on tonight? We have volleyball, Springfield at Ursuline. Noah Doty making the trip to Ursuline for that one. 6 o'clock is the first serve for varsity there. We have Fairport Harding at Badger. Matt Morrison going to get you a look at the new addition to the power rankings as Badger sits at number 9 right now. We have Lake Center Christian at Middle Ridge. I'll be there as Samantha Aulette goes for her 1,000th career assist. And then we have Warren Harding at Liberty, Alacaberna. Liberty's a sneaky team that's really playing well this year, and they've had a lot of thrilling victories. It seems like every time they're going out, they're getting a 5-set victory. They are coming off a 4-set victory at Camel on Thursday. So Liberty looks to continue to be impressive as they're on the network tonight, along with those other ones that we mentioned. We go down the line of the schedule today. Sorry, I just lost my place, but some other games going on.
Chris Ziegler, Mallet from Southern going for her 1,000th assist tonight as well.
Wow. Okay, so we have 3 milestones happening probably this week. We got that one for Southern, Riley Mellott, who is up for Bear Brothers Big Dog of the Valley this week as well.
Southern, we got introduced to their volleyball program, and I mean, they've been really solid too that we've gotten a chance to see, and they have a big dog up for voting. Get out there and vote.
Chris, if you could throw in who Southern is playing tonight, because I don't see them on our schedule. So I would love to. Oh, no, they're last. They're Steubenville Central Catholic.
I was going to say, I think it's Central Catholic for sure.
So Steubenville Central Catholic, Riley Mellott going for her 1,000th career assist as well.
currently has 250 assists on the season. She's got a quarter of it done already.
She's beating Alette by eight assists so far this year.
250 as a junior. That's wild.
We'll keep an eye on that. As 2 juniors go for 1,000 assists, that's incredible. Some girls soccer on the network tonight as well as Gerard at Struthers. It says primary and then versus Poland girls as this is tennis. Wait a minute. Okay. I think Bob Zanni's going to try to do both. Tennis against Poland at 4 and soccer versus Gerard at 6. Canfield would be a more
Bob Zanni, legend.
I know. Canfield girls soccer travels to Boardman. It'll be Eric Little on the call there. Richie and Romo are heading to Poland for girls soccer. Niles comes to town. Poland trying to bounce off their 3-1 loss to West Branch over the weekend. And then last but not least, Salem will be a Beaver local girls soccer. Mike McKenzie will have the call there at 7 o'clock as well. So we have 4 soccer games for you on tonight, and we also have 4 volleyball games. So 8 games total on the network. Head over to ysnlive.com/live to find the links to all those games. They are completely free. And make sure to check out, we have some milestones happening tonight and tomorrow as well in volleyball. So you never know what you're going to get on the network.
Never know. So get there, ysnlive.com/live. Get a list of all the games happening tonight.
All right, we are going to step aside. I'll be back tomorrow with DJ Oakley for the Running Point, and we'll take a 22-hour break. Tomorrow we do have confirmed Nolan Toth from Lakeview Football and Maggie Pavlansky from Lakeview Volleyball, so we'll have a little bit of a Lakeview day tomorrow. Maybe some other guests, who knows? We'll try to get some confirmed for tomorrow as well. But for now, those 2 are confirmed for tomorrow. Casual Sports Podcast coming up next. Power Hour from 3 to 4, and then a bunch of games on the network tonight. Don't miss a minute of it. Thank you so much for tuning in.